Hello, this is Lou DeLuca, the Financial Literacy Coordinator at Southern Connecticut State University, and I'm going to discuss the PowerPoint Paying for College this evening. As you can see on the first slide, the easiest way to reach me is to email me at delucal2@southernct.edu. If you want information on the website for financial literacy, you can Google SCSU financial literacy, and you'll pull up my website. So we're going to talk about paying for college. If we go on to the first slide talks about payment options. So this is really important because it summarizes more than most people think when it comes to paying for college. Most people consider financial aid as options to pay for school. Well, the first two bullets, grants and scholarships and loans, that's financial aid. The other five bullets there that we'll mention in a moment are not financial aid. So, grants and scholarships are a form of free money. A grant comes from the college, the state, or the government. It's based on what's called financial need. I'll describe that a little bit later. And then there are scholarships. Scholarships are free money too that is earned. So they're oftentimes described as merit-based. They could be academic, they could be athletic, they could be music, they could be drama. They could come from an employer, they could come from a local community agency. So grants and scholarships, that's what everybody wants, that's the free money. Then there are loans. There's really two types, student loans and parent loans. There's federal student loans, there are private student loans. There are federal parent loans as well. Those loans are such that we're borrowing money now to repay them back after graduation with interest. For the fall 2020 and spring 2021, so the 2021 year, the interest rate on student federal loans are fixed at 2.75%. The interest on Parent Plus loans are fixed at 5.3%. Private student loans range anywhere from 4 to 12%, variable to fixed. So, grants, scholarships, loans, financial aid related. Payment plan, installment plans. Most colleges will have a payment plan option as opposed to making a lump sum payment each semester. At Southern, I describe ours as a 10-month plan. Often families will do 5 months in the fall and 5 months in the spring. In essence, breaking up their payments, over a 10-month period for the year. Investments. Lots of families have 529 college savings plans. Some will use their IRA, a Roth IRA as an example, as an investment tool for college. You see others, Coverdale, custodial accounts, U.S. savings bonds, stocks and bonds, variable life insurance, and annuities. So a handful of investment opportunities. Employment. Excess earnings. Some universities have tuition waivers. So if I were taking classes myself or a family member were, they may be able to get a discount because I work there. Okay. Credit cards. Most colleges will offer credit cards as a payment option. We at Southern do so with a small convenience fee of 2.85%. And then lastly, home equity lines of credit. Some families will choose to borrow against the equity in their home as opposed to taking on student loans or parent loans. So, a list of payment options. If we move to the next slide, let's talk about the financial aid applications. There are two of them. There's the FAFSA and there's the CSS profile. The FAFSA is free. It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Okay. It is done at the studentaid.gov website, and it is an annual application that can be submitted October 1st each year. So you can't file before October 1st, but once October 1st comes, filing can begin. Many colleges use a first-come, first-served basis, so it's a good idea to at least know one school that one is applying to in the fall, for the fall semester, to submit their FAFSA in their senior year, okay, October 1st. One can list up to 10 colleges on the FAFSA. The first word in FAFSA is free, okay? The FAFSA has made it easier for families to file, so you need not give it to your own accountant or have someone do the FAFSA for you. It's relatively straightforward based on the general financial questions that it's seeking. The CSS profile. Lots of private schools require the CSS profile. It is a fee application, so you pay a small fee for each application sent to private schools that require the CSS profile. Okay. Every school uses the FAFSA to determine federal student aid, federal grants, federal loans. Many private schools use the CSS profile for their institutional-based aid. That too is an October 1st annual deadline, senior year, and then each subsequent year in college. What both the FAFSA and the CSS profile do is they generate a number, and that number is described as an EFC, or an estimated family contribution. Okay, we're going to look at EFCs in a few more slides, but I just want to let you know that's the goal of the FAFSA in the profile, is to provide that number, that EFC, that the colleges are going to use to determine the financial aid award. If we go on to the next slide, cost of attendance. So cost of attendance is just a fancy term for a budget, okay? Now, every college will have these same components, direct costs and indirect costs, as part of their cost of attendance. A direct cost for every student is tuition and fees. So that's the cost to go to class and the mandatory fees to maintain the university. You see some ranges here, $4,500. That's similar to what a community college, a two-year community college in Connecticut may cost. The $12,000 to $17,000 could be a four-year state college here in Connecticut. And then $50,000 could be a private college, be it here in state or anywhere else. Okay, so you see a broad range of tuition and fees. Those are direct costs. So no matter which school I attend, those direct costs I'm going to be billed for from the university. Room and board. If I choose to live on campus, room charge, and board, the meal plan, then that ranges anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. So if I'm living on campus, tuition and fees and room and board are my direct costs. I will be billed for those from the university. Indirect costs, non-billable costs, room and board. So if I live off campus in an apartment, or if I live at home or with family or parents, room and board is part of my cost of attendance, but it's not a billable direct cost. Okay. Books and supplies. I'm going to have to buy my textbooks as a college student, okay? So $1,400 is an estimate of what my books and supplies could cost for the year. And then there's personal transportation. Obviously, if I'm a commuter student not living on campus, I might have higher transportation costs, gas, oil changes, maintenance of my car, things of that nature if I have a vehicle. So know that every school has a cost of attendance. They utilize these direct and indirect elements, tuition, fees, room board, book supplies, personal transportation. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So I'm going to show you two sample awards. The first one shows an EFC of 0. So remember again what an EFC is. An EFC is the estimated family contribution that the FAFSA generated. Okay, so now what I'm trying to show you here is cost of attendance minus EFC equals financial need. So that's the goal of the EFC, is to determine if I have financial need or not. So looking at a private four-year college, could be in-state, could be out-of-state, it doesn't matter. Let's say hypothetically that their cost of attendance is $75,000. My EFC is 0, therefore my financial need is the full $75,000, okay? Similarly, if I look at a four-year public school within Connecticut, let's say the cost of attendance is $35,000. EFC is 0, financial need is the full $35,000. In a public two-year Connecticut college, the cost of attendance estimated at $15,000, financial need is $15,000. So now let's look at the financial aid. Let's look at the free money is what I have in italics. A federal Pell Grant. Any college student in the 2021 academic year with a 0 EFC will get $63.45 in a federal Pell Grant. Okay, that's across the board. The four-year private, the four-year public, the two-year public. Now let's look at college scholarships or grants. This is the college's money that they choose to allocate however they wish. Private schools that tend to cost more than publics tend to be more generous. In this example, with a scholarship or grant for $20,000, free money. The public 4-year may be gifting or granting $3,500. The public 2-year may be gifting or granting $1,000. Okay, so now we go on to student loans. So I mentioned federal student loans. There are 2 types for undergraduate students. There's subsidized and unsubsidized. You see the subsidized is $3,500, which is the maximum for freshmen in college. The unsubsidized is $2,000 for first-year students as well. So there's a combined $5,500. Subsidized loans means the government pays the interest while the student is enrolled in college. Unsubsidized loans basically means the student pays the interest. I encourage my students to pay that interest on an unsub loan while in college to avoid it from compounding during their undergraduate years. If not, then the unsub interest will compound on the unsub principal, and students will pay it off after graduation. So what we're looking now, if we look on the bottom line, the Parent Plus loan or a private student loan. So let's look at the private 4-year college first. This $43,155, that number is coming from the $75,000 cost of attendance, and I've subtracted the Pell Grant, the college scholarship and grant, in the sub and unsub loans. So the remaining balance or gap, if you will, is a little over $43,000. Do I have that in college savings? Can I do that on a 10-month payment plan? Do I have means to pay that $43,000? If so, that's maybe the way that I pay. If not, maybe I need a Parent Plus loan for $43,000 or so, or I co-sign a private student loan with my daughter, as an example. So what I'm trying to show you is the gap. The gap is the cost of attendance minus the financial aid. Looking over at the public 4-year Connecticut school, we're looking at almost $20,000, right? $19,655. That's the remaining balance or gap for the year, for the first year. And then you see the public 2-year school, the gap is obviously much, much smaller. So again, trying to show you 3 different types of schools: private 4-year, public 4-year, and public 2-year college, and estimated financial aid in the remaining balance or gap. So we're going to go to the next slide, which is another set of sample awards. And what I've done is I've changed the EFC. I've changed the EFC from 0 on the previous slide to $35,000, okay? Again, now we're going to do some simple math to figure out financial need. At the 4-year private, $75,000 minus $35,000 EFC is a $40,000 need or gap, okay? Well, let's continue to look down. Well, there's no Pell Grant with an EFC that high. The school may still be awarding a scholarship for $20,000. There's still the sub and the unsubsidized loans. But look what happened to the gap or the unmet financial aid at the very bottom. Now it's $49,500. There's no Pell Grant here. So in this example, I'm short nearly $50,000, based on this sample financial aid award from a 4-year private school with an EFC of $35,000. Moving over to the 4-year public in Connecticut, look what happens to the financial need. If my cost of attendance, $35,000, is equal to my EFC, there's no financial need there, okay? What does that mean? Well, obviously there's no federal Pell Grant. Now the college still may be gifting a $2,000 scholarship. You see no subsidized loan there because subsidized loans are need-based, and there is no financial need in this example. Okay, so the full loan, the $5,500, is unsubsidized. Okay, and then you see the unmet need or the gap of $27,500. That's the remaining balance or gap, if you will, to cover the entire cost of attendance. Looking at lastly at the 2-year public school, $15,000 minus $35,000. Obviously, there's no financial need. There's probably, there is no Pell Grant. There's probably no scholarship either from the 2-year school. No subsidized loan eligibility, but a $5,500 unsubsidized loan could be offered. So again, showing you here with a EFC of 35,000, how financial aid packages can change from 2-year to 4-year public and private schools. Okay, the last slide. For families that are less than seniors in high school, so I would say your freshman, your sophomore, your junior families, okay, the FAFSA forecaster and the net price calculator can be tools to help figure out what the EFC potentially is for you for your FAFSA in the future. And so let's do that first. So if you go to FAFSA forecaster, you can, and this is anonymous, you can type in your general information and it will give back an EFC, an estimated family contribution figure. You can then use that number to kind of plug it into the sample awards that I showed you earlier to get a sense of, so if my EFC is this, do I have financial need at this school? Maybe yes at a private, maybe no at a public school, things like that. So it's a tool to know your EFC before you even file your FAFSA. The net price calculator is a tool that all colleges have on their website. And the intent is you, again, plug in your general financial information and it gives an estimated award from that specific college. Good news, bad news. The good news is some NPCs are very accurate to the actual financial aid award. The bad news is some of them have old data in there, so it's not really a good tool or a predictor. So the calculator should tell you it's based off of a certain academic year. If it's up to date to this year or the year that your student is applying, doing the FAFSA, then it might be very accurate. But if the data is a couple of years old, be wary because it may not be super accurate. So, summarizing again, the FAFSA and the CSS profile are annual applications. We file them on or after October 1st of the senior year in high school and then subsequent years in college. Private scholarships. So private scholarships can be a tool as another means to help pay for school. I say here, apply monthly. Scholarships are all over the place. There are some scholarships you can only apply for in January. There are some you can only apply for in June. So it's a matter of using your high school resource, libraries, places of employment, community organizations, local town papers that you may get on a weekly basis. Private scholarships are all over the place, okay? So if students can use that, I sometimes use the analogy of looking for private scholarships is like a part-time job. If you spend X amount of times daily or weekly, think of it as a tool, again, to help earn some free money to help pay for school. Working. Again, I always encourage my students, if they can, to work and save a portion of their money each summer. I go back to the earlier slide where I estimated books and supplies at around $1,400. If a student has that in earnings or savings or can earn and save that kind of money each summer, that should be enough to cover books and supplies for a year. Okay. Commuting. Obviously at Southern, we're a public school. The majority of our students come from here in Connecticut. Sometimes it's expensive to live on campus. Anywhere from, we estimate, $12,000 to $13,000 is roughly what room and board is for us. Our tuition and fees is a little under $12,000. Sometimes it's cost effective to commute if you're within commuting distance, if you can't afford the extra $12,000 to $13,000 of room and board. Okay. Last point is special circumstances. So when you're filing your FAFSA, the FAFSA is always looking at what they call prior year data. Basically, that's data that's 2 years old. Okay. Well, 2 years ago, my financial situation, that of my family may have been X, but now, today, Y, things have changed. So there's always an opportunity to apply for what's called special circumstances directly through the financial aid office. So normally the way that happens is a student does the FAFSA gets sent to financial aid, the student applies and gets admitted, and once their financial aid award is done, they could reach out to the financial aid office, phone, email, or in person, and say, well, things have changed. There's been a job loss. There's been a divorce or separation. There's been a death. Something drastic that drastically affects the finances. Okay, it could have, could have come from, the COVID outbreak and loss of income in jobs and things like that. So know that there is an appeals process through the financial aid office directly at the school. Okay. So since this is virtual, obviously we're not doing a question and answer period, but again, back to the very first slide, you have my email address, delucal2@southernct.edu. Email me any questions you have related to this or specific to your students or yourselves' personal situation. My goal as the financial literacy person is to not only help students applying to Southern, but any other families that may need assistance with understanding the process of paying for college. So I appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful. And please do email me with any follow-up questions, comments that you may have. Thank you, and have a great day.